Never mind. I was supposed to put the. I actually stumbled around with the intro. Whatever. Hello,
Mhm.
guys. Welcome to Tattoo 505. And today, me and Bryer, from Bryer's Music Showcase, we are going to be finishing our Kate Bush series. And yeah, last album, 50 Words for Snow. Uh,
Yeah.
Bryer, as usual, gotta give me some of that.
Background information.
Well, well, of course, there was another long break in between this album and Ariel, which was 2005. Now we're in 2011. So, yeah, been a while, as usual. So, a couple things happened in between that. For one thing, she started her own label. The label's called Fish People, which, I think in a lot of my Kate Bush CDs, I got the remasters and it has her label. I think the CD actually has the label, I think. Well, it's kind of a gray variant. Oh, almost dropped it. But it just has a little logo there. So kind of like her, just kind of where she will release a lot of her, whenever she releases things, it's going to be through that now. So she has more control over her catalog and her output. So another thing happened. So it kind of goes back because I think when we did Ariel last week, I think we had a comment kind of talking about another album that was mentioned called Director's Cut that was released the same year. And, you know, I'll say here, I replied that comment, but I get why. I know, when you go on Wikipedia, that Director's Cut is included in her discography. Personally, I don't really consider it part of the main discography. It's like more of a bonus thing. It's just her kind of going back to some of her old material from from the Red Shoes and the Sensual World and kind of updating them, in a sense. I might get it, but I don't. To me, it's I don't see it as a full fledged studio album. So it's like a bonus, but that aside, so that's why we didn't cover Director's Cut. Um, but going back to the album, so it's actually pretty straightforward. It was just at this point in the game, Kate just decided to do another complete 180 on her sound, and she was playing around with piano and just kind of playing to this more jazz sort of feel. And the whole point of the album is to kind of the music is supposed to be set with the idea of snow falling, just this supposed to go with the whole mood of it. And it was inspired by because apparently the Eskimo do actually have 50 words meaning snow or phrases that mean snow. And so she kind of liked the idea and decided to just put that to music. Um, and she kind of composed all these songs yet again. Um, Not that many songs this time around, and she had not as many. There's actually quite a little bit of guests on here. I'm not gonna. We'll mention this as we go. I think the one I'll mention now is Steve Gadd, who is on drums, who is a pretty well-known session drummer who's played with many bands. The ones that come to mind, I know Steely Dan, he's played with them, and I know he's played with other countless acts, but Steely Dan's the one that's coming to mind. Um, so yeah, she released the album 2011, and shockingly, it did fairly well. It got to number 8. Well, in the US, it got to 83. Well, that's not new. But in the UK, it got to number 5. And again, it's shockingly got a lot of great reviews. They actually got a lot of praise when this came out. Um, and I guess in my opinion, it's kind of more because Kay hadn't released any new material in a long time. I feel like that's a contributor why people latched onto it because oh my god, Kate's been gone for so long. Finally, we get something new, and they're just gonna like it regardless. That's kind of what my guess is. But overall, yeah, that's all I got to say about the background info. Not much really else to add.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, I just changed my headline. I'm gonna be dead weight this review because uh, brief thoughts. I think this album's terrible. I don't like any of the songs on this album. It's boring. It meanders too much, and I don't like it. My reviews on these 7 tracks are going to be very brief. Hence why I put dead weight, because I'm gonna be dead weight this review. And I apologize to any Ranger fan, any Kate Bush fan, like Leslie, um, whoever's been uh watching my reviews. You're gonna be upset with me, but I'm sorry. It's not. I'm not gonna be. My review on this album's not gonna be good.
Yeah. In terms of my thoughts on it, this one kind of changed drastically, I would say. Because on my channel, of course, I did my own ranking of Kate Bush, and I had this last place. It's kind of a spoil alerts for when we do our ranking. That's not going to change. Um, but yeah, so I remember in my review, I was in my ranking video, I was actually kind of more lenient on it. I was actually kind of giving him, I was actually a bit more positive on it. But I will say, I think the reason why I was so positive on it is because I was still in that, like, honeymoon phase with Kate Bush where I was scared to say anything bad about it. I mean, I'm sure you've been through moments where you really get into a band or artist, and you don't wanna say anything bad about them. That was me
Yeah,
with Queen that was me with Queen for a long time, and Kate was no exception to that. And so I was kinda I didn't wanna say I knew it wasn't my favorite, but I didn't wanna say anything bad about it. But, it's been over a year or so. And yeah, my thoughts on it. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be more honest. Yeah, this is by far my least favorite Kate Bush album. It's the least interesting. Is there's not much bombast or anything that's because yeah, what I love about Kate Bush is how out there she is. This is kind of her going a bit more subdued, and I I also kind of feel like is another contributor to why this album's so subdued is because, at this point, she's a lot older. I think she knows she can't reach, like, her those high notes she did when she was younger, so she switched up to something a bit more that's more in her range, and I get it. But in terms of, like, this in terms of, like, is this an album by her I'm gonna go back to? Heck no. Mm, I'm, like, never gonna come back to this album. Um Maybe if it's the right mood, but I don't really see it because for one thing, it doesn't snow in San Diego, so that's one thing I have that against me. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna be with you in a lot of things. I'm not gonna be saying that many great things here either. And it sucks, because I still have that attachment, so I feel bad of saying anything bad about it, but you gotta be honest with yourself.
of course. It sucks because it's like, man, like that 8 album run she had. Uh,
Mm.
even the 2 weakest albums before this one, like Lionheart and Ariel. I think those albums were still there were some really great aspects of those 2 albums, but to me, I have nothing. I really have nothing to talk about that's good. Uh, yeah, let's get this could be our shortest review in this series. Just getting that out of the way. I think Breyer's gonna be doing most of the talking because I'm gonna be very, very, very brief. First song on the album, Snowflake, and we're already off to an extremely boring start. It's almost 10 minutes long. This song does nothing for me. It's extremely boring, and I'm just saying to myself, I'm like, oh no, is this really gonna be how the album is? And I'm just like, oh gosh, this is gonna be terrible. And yeah, already off to a terrible start. I do not like the song at all.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, yes, kind of the same feelings. Again, it's 9 minutes long, and it's really just her on the piano, and it's the same melody for the same 9 minutes, and that's nothing else. Maybe there's a little bit of strings, but it's very subtle. Like you hardly notice it sometimes. And yeah, it does get very repetitive by the 2 minute mark. Like by 2 minutes, I was already like, okay, I'm getting tired of it now. Um, And I mean lyrically, I think lyrically it's still very Kate Bush, like, it's very, like of course, Kate would write something like this because it's told in the upper s in because it's the song lyrics are supposed to be in the perspective of a snowflake falling, like a personified snowflake. Only Kate Bush would write something like that. So her, in terms of lyrics, she's fine, but musically, it's just nothing really excites me about it. And what's kind of another interesting thing about this track is that Kate does not actually sing the majority of this song. It's actually her son. Of course, his son did a little bit of vocals on the last album, but here he's it's he's kind of taking lead vocals on this one, which is kind of interesting. But I will say, when he does his high notes, it does get a big grading. Like, I get he's in choir, but even I can take that high pitched, like, young boy voice for just so long that, yeah, it just kind of gets annoying after a bit. Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I think definitely of all of her albums, this is by far her weakest opening track by far.
Okay. Now we move on to the next song, which is Lake Tahoe. And again, another boring song. It meanders way too long. It's 11 minutes long. This entire time, I'm just like, I just want this song to be over. I mean, I had to separate this album into 3 different listens. That's how long and meander. It's like it just kept going on and on. First I had to listen to the first 3 songs and then take a break. Then listen to the next 2 songs, then take a break, and then listen to the last 2 songs and then that'll be it. But yeah, this is to me another song that's just way too out of proportion, way too boring. Yeah, to me, this is the second weakest track on the album. It's really bad.
Mhm. All right, so the first thing I wrote was 11 minutes of soundtrack music. 'Cause that's what it basically is. Like, it's the music musically, it's just something you would just hear in the background of a movie or something that takes place in a snowy area. Um, so that's and I mean, and you that's all I really gotta say about it. But what did I write? Okay, so there's actually 2 male guests on this one, and I guess it's kind of appreciated because it kind of they do contrast well with her voice. Because again, she now has to stick with her lower register, and so you have the males providing the more higher ends, which you get a good contrast. But again, the music just does not support it that well. Um, but again, once again, I think lyrically, it's the only thing that's worth noting is that because it's actually based on a true legend on the actual Lake Tahoe, which apparently, I guess if you go there at a certain time at night, maybe during the winter, supposedly a ghost comes out from the lake. So again, that's kind of a cool image. But again, I got nothing else to add. It's just kind of like 11 minutes of just kind of this like you said, meandering. Not really much else to say about it. It's just like you're just kind of sitting there.
Okay. Now we go from 11 minutes of meandering nonsense to 13 and a half minutes of boring, meandering, boring nonsense. This is, again, so boring. After this song, I was just like, I can't listen to this album anymore. I have to take a big break to Bryer's understanding. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't listen to this. It's just so boring. I can't. It's just so boring. I don't have much to say. There's nothing for me to add. And again, like I said, I'm dead weight right now because it's just boring music. I have nothing really to say. It's just that's like me the entire time. So boring.
All right, Kay. Once again, the lyrics to this one are the big standout because for one thing, it's actually supposed to be what the album cover is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about a woman falling in love with a snowman. And the whole time I'm listening to this, the only thing I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, is there a thing called snow porn out there? I have no idea. But that was like the only thing that I was thinking the entire time because yeah, again, 13 minutes of just like the slow, very very much dragging along. again, you're trying to focus on the story, but the music is just kind of really just kind of not doing much to help you stay focused. Um, and yeah, again, this is the song I said that you could have easily shortened this and it could have worked, but because it's stretched out for so long, it just takes a lot out of takes a lot out of you. There's a bit more drums. That's something, but again, it's just not much. That's not saying much. And a little bit of bass, but again, it's just like your typical jazz bass. That's walking bass line. Something you hear in a lot of jazz, but other than that, it's just again not really much else to say about it. Um, yeah, so there you go. We can move on now.
Okay, after that's over, Wild Man. Um, it's the best song on the album so far, and I think it's terrible still. The music's okay, like the music and the production is fine. It's not as boring or meandering as like the last few songs, but to me, what really takes me out of it's the vocals. I think the vocals were absolutely terrible on the song. Like it sounds like it's like like this is terrible. I not having any fun with this track because of the vocals. Maybe if this was like a 7-minute instrumental, I'd like it a little bit more, but man, those vocals are killing me. It's terrible. I don't know. This is another song. I'm just like, ugh, I don't like this. I mean, I could be pulling out the trash can, but like, I don't feel like doing that for every song. I'm just like, I let the songs speak for themselves.
hmm So there's one great thing about this song. It's short.
Yeah, 7 minutes.
Yes. And naturally, because like you said, this one definitely has more going on in it. So naturally, it's the only single for this album. Um, and it's supposed to be about a Yeti, wild man, a Yeti. Sure, I guess. There's a lot more guitars to hear, a little bit more. And that's something I can give this song is that this one actually sounds like it has a pulse and it's not like just kind of this meandering nonsense here. Here's actually a bit more, slightly more upbeat. Yet again, but again, it's like it's not the greatest song in the world. Again, like I said, it's definitely the most immediate song that kind of gets your attention. But even that, this is nowhere near her best stuff to me. Again, this is like I already forgot most. Like I'll be honest, I forgot how most of these songs go. I'm just going by my notes. But yeah, it's okay. But yeah, it's just there.
Okay. Now I get to the next song on the album, Snowden at Wheeler Street. And wow, this is the quote. To me, this is the quote, the best song on the album. Uh, well, I put it that way. To me, this is the most tolerable song on the album. To me, this is yet again another boring song. Uh, I mean, if this was like 2 minutes, I'd be like, okay, it's a fine song. But 8 minutes, so boring. The best highlight of the song is that Elton John singing in it. That's like the only thing I can really say that's like good about the song, and that's about it. I think Elton did a good job, and yeah, just another boring song. I just like ugh, like it's the best song on the album, but only by default.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat again. Yeah, like you said, the best thing about this track is that you have Elton John, and I think they do complement each other fairly well. Um, so they have that going for it. But again, there's not much else to say about it musically. Again, we're kind of going back to know, the more subdued music, more jazz influence here. Um, yep, you know, yeah, that's really all I got to add. I wrote down the meaning of the song, but even that, I'm like, I don't really feel like going, going. I don't feel like talking about it. I just want to keep going. So, yep, that's all I gotta say.
Okay, now we get to the title track, and To me, this is the worst track on the album. Yeah, I mean, if this is the supposed to be like how it's supposed to be like when you get snowed in, I'm like, oh, it's perfect because it drives me crazy. It would drive me crazy if that happened to me, and the song perfectly capulates it. So, if she was supposed to make me go crazy from this song, good job. You did a good job, but
Right.
if you're trying to make a good song, but I say if you're trying to make a good song, well, then you failed miserably because this is another boring song. 8 minutes, so boring, so slow, so I can't with this album. It's so boring.
All right. So again, this is the title track. So again, well, I already went through the meaning of this song and the background info about the Eskimo, and so that's basically what this whole song is about. Just for one thing, you have another guest star on here. You have Stephen Fry, who is a very famous British actor, comedian. So he's here and he's just reciting the 50 words for snow, basically. And I'm like, bruh, this is basically a children's song at this point. Yeah, I agree. This is the worst song on here. This is one I literally the last thing I wrote here was I can't be bothered with this. So yeah, not great at all.
I'm so glad you agree. Okay, last song on the album, Hallelujah, Among
Perfect.
Angels.
Yeah,
Among
perfect. That's a perfect segue.
Yes. Ah, this is the last song on the album. Did she save the best for last? Well, no. This is terrible. Another terrible song on the album. Boring. Almost 7 minutes of nothingness yet again. I'm just over this album. I'll let you do the rest.
All right. So we just finished with a love song, basically. Nothing too crazy this time, surprisingly. Yeah, just closing on a very simple piano ballad. And again, there's some strings, but again, it's not really that memorable. Yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. The only thing that I liked was the beginning, where you actually hear an outtake, that's kind of interesting. I don't think she ever did that before, but yeah, that's like the only good thing, and then you got the rest. So yeah, not much else to add to that. Kind of a weak closing song.
And it's a weak closing song to her discography too.
Yeah.
Hey, Bryer, what's the most tolerable song on the album for you?
Okay, so I guess the most tolerable ones.
Yeah, not even
I
a
only
top
have
five.
two.
Okay.
Yeah, I have like two. Like these are the only ones where I can see myself going back, but probably not. Wildman and Snowden at Wheeler Street. That's all I got.
For me, the most tolerable song on the album is "Snowed In at Wheeler Street." Yeah, not even a top five. Just what's the song we tolerated the most?
Yeah.
Okay, here comes my score. It's gonna be super negative, 0.5 out of 10. Uh, which yeah, that's like besides like the worst album of all time, which I give a 0 out of 10. This is the lowest I give an album. So yeah, terrible, terrible, terrible last album for Kate Bush. I'm going to be honest. Yeah, I feel like Ariel would have been a much better last album for her.
Mm.
Okay, what's your score going to be?
All right. So this was actually the toughest part of this whole assignment because I was trying to think, like how harsh should I go? Because again, because I do like jazz, but this is not the jazz I like. So this might sound generous, but I'm gonna take from Jason's how Jason scores. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10. Like I don't think I can go. I don't think I can ever go that low for Kate. I don't think I can ever see myself doing that. But 5, like how Jason scores his things. Like 5 is like the worst he would give, and that's probably what I'll do here. Just give it a 5. It's not that great. To me, this is not the Kate Bush I go for a lot. This is This is the album I'm not going to go back to very much at all. It's kind of like it's just not the Kate Bush I listen to. Like, I miss the bombast. I want the theatricality. I want the weirdness, but you don't really get that here. It's very, very much her doing just kind of something more calm. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. 5 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, that was a very generous score. uh, okay. What's your final thoughts in general before before we close out for today? Just in general for Kate Bush.
I do have one thing to say. Even though we've ragged on this album this whole time, and this is our shortest review so far of this whole series, um, I will say I will give Kate credit. She did something you least expected. And that's kind of something she's done throughout her whole career, is that you never really know what she's going to do next. Kind of like, sort of like David Bowie in a way, where he went through many changes, Kate through many changes. And same with David Bowie. You're not going to like everything that she does. You're not going to enjoy everything, like all the directions she goes in, but you kind of somewhat respect her for doing something different. Even if you don't like it, you kind of like, Kate, you did something different. I'll give you that. That's kind of what I feel about this album as a whole. Again, I don't love it, but hey, Kate wanted to do it, so I respect her for sticking to their guns there. But who knows? She's still alive, so who knows? Maybe she could release another album, and maybe she'll do something a little better than this. But who knows? It's really up to Kate.
For her sake, I don't think she should be making any more albums because I feel like with the her I feel like it'll be another slower album for her. So I'm kind of hoping it's just over for her now. It's just like end on this album. I feel like she might make an even worse album. So I'm just like, just stop while you're ahead. Just have one bad album. Don't have more bad albums. Just you had a good run. Eight great album. Well, 8 at least good albums. So I think that's a pretty good run. Just leave it at just one bad album. That's all I gotta say. Please don't make any more music. For me, I'm not asking for any music because the last I want to do is review a 10th album and it be like, it's another terrible album by Kate Bush. I don't want to do that. So, my opinion, stop making albums. This is quite enough for you. I think you proved yourself to be very essential and very important to music. So, there's that. I will give my more thoughts on Kate Bush as a whole when we do our retrospective, which will most likely be tomorrow, with the top 10 and album ranking. So, I wonder where this album will rank in our ranking. Who knows?
Well, I already spoiled it in the beginning, so mine's not gonna be shocked.
Who knows? Maybe it might change. Okay. In all seriousness, though, thank you guys so much for watching this. This series has been a blast to go through, and well, see you guys next time. So long.